Alright everyone, welcome to my review of the Sony A7riii. I've had the camera now for several weeks and I've had a chance to really put it through its paces and shoot a wide range of content. Everything from kind of fast moving action to portraits to landscape to astro shots of the Milky Way and kind of everything in between. So I wanted to spend some time with it before I shared my thoughts on it. To make sure that I truly understood how the camera worked, I understood its capabilities, and I could give it a fair comparison to my previous cameras. This review isn't going to be like a real technical review. There's plenty of those online. This is going to be more of a layman's review. It's going to be for photographers that are real serious about their photography and that are perhaps mulling over the switch from a crop sensor to a full frame sensor, which is pretty much where I was a few months ago. So first off, let me just get this out of the way. The first camera that I got, it was a lemon. There was something wrong with it. And it makes me a little bit nervous about the Sony build quality. But then I got online. I didn't really see many other people that had that issue, so I'm just going to consider it, I guess, an outlier. But essentially what happened was the lens and the camera, there was some type of glitch and the autofocus system would just completely fail sometimes. It would stop working. I'd have to either turn the camera off or back on completely. And then one time when I was shooting a festival, and this was a paid gig, it completely crashed on me and it wouldn't work at all. Even turning it off and on didn't fix the problem. I had to literally disconnect the lens and reconnect it to fix the problem. So that was a big concern. I kind of lost faith in it, and it was right after I'd gotten the camera, but B&H, they swapped it out, the lens and the camera body, and this new system, or the new replacement one, has been perfect. So I'm just going to consider it a glitch, an outlier, and looking around online, it doesn't seem like that happens very often. I will say this though, now that I have one that I have faith in, it's amazing. It is an absolutely phenomenal camera. I talk to myself sometimes when I'm using it and when I'm looking at the results on the screen. So sharp, so responsive. The autofocus system is so good, and the ISO and dynamic range and high ISO performance are just off the charts. It makes shooting everything that much more enjoyable. So who would this camera be for? Because this is kind of big. I was shooting with an A6300 and A6000 before. You can see there's a bit of a difference in heft and in size, and I miss this sometimes. Don't get me wrong, the size of this is great for backpacking, for times when you don't want to lug around a lot of equipment with you. But for me personally, now that I'm doing more paid work and I'm making big enlargements, this is worth it. It's 40 megapixels. It takes tack sharp photos with the Sony G Master lens. I've got 3 lenses for this. This is the one I've spent the most time with. This is the G Master 2.8 16 to 35, and it is so sharp, and it does really well with Milky Way as well. You'll see that here in just a little bit. I've also got the Sony A70 to 300. It's kind of fun, honestly. This is the first big zoom I've had in a long time. It's kind of fun to have a big zoom, especially when shooting sports or just getting different type of compositions with your landscape photographs. So I'm excited about this. And then also I've got the Tamron Fix 2.8, and this is a 28 to 75 zoom. This is going to be my walking around lens, and you can tell there's a difference in size between it and the G Master. G Master is obviously more expensive and higher quality, but the sharpness of this is really, really good, surprisingly good. And if you look at the reviews online, you'll see other people saying the same thing. So this will probably be the lens I use most frequently, although I have found myself shooting a lot of landscape with this because I can get so wide at 16 millimeters. So let me talk about a couple things that I really, really like about this camera. The 2 card slots is so nice. So I've got 2 SD cards in there, and with Sony and the menu systems, you can program it to do all types of things. I've got the 1 card duplicating the images to the other card. So when I take a picture, it records that image to both cards. What that means is if one card goes bad, I've got a backup. So if I'm shooting something paid and I can't go reshoot it, that's really good peace of mind for me. And secondly, it's kind of nice because I don't know about you, but I've left my card at home before, and I get to a gig or I get to just a shoot that I want to do, and I'm like, I don't have my card with me. It's a sickening feeling. With 2 cards here, I'll never have both of them out because one of them always serves as just a backup or as a redundant card. And so I'll always have that one in the camera, and then I could shoot to that one. Another thing that you can do is you can shoot 1 card to RAW and 1 card to JPEG. That's kind of cool as well. Speaking of JPEG, another thing I love about this camera, it's got 3 modes, or 3 custom modes that you can save to. And so I've got them set up to the type of shooting that I do. One is RAW but compressed. That's when I don't need all the dynamic range, but I want to save on file size. Number 2 is RAW uncompressed. That's when I'm shooting low light, astro, things where I need as much dynamic range as possible. And then the third one is JPEG. And I don't usually shoot JPEG, but JPEG is actually kind of nice because I can flip to that and I can take a quick shot of my kids, snapshot of family, friends, just a little event that I know I'm not going to do much processing on. I just want a high quality photo, and it's right there. We've got custom buttons across the top and on the back. The touch screen is good but not great, but to me it's the ISO performance that really is a game changer for me, because what I'm doing now is I'm just setting it to auto ISO, and I'm setting my minimum shutter speed for that to kick in at either 1/30th or 1/60th, and then I just forget it. And I don't have to worry about if the exposure's right, because it will automatically kick up that ISO for me if the light gets to be too low. And the ISO performance is so good that I really don't even worry about if it's kicking up to 300 ISO or 400 or 500 or 640 or whatever. So the ISO performance is really good. The dynamic range is phenomenal. You'll see that in some of the test images that I'm going to show you here in a little bit. But to me, I mean, it's money, but it's well worth it. If you want to get even more serious about your photography, if you're starting to shoot some things that pay money, if you want to make big enlargements, then this is a tough camera to beat. And I know that everybody is brand loyal. I've shot Canon, I've shot Nikon, I've had all their digital SLRs, or not the full frame ones, but the more kind of consumer or prosumer ones. And I really like what some of the innovation that Sony has brought, and I think they've done a really good job. And I feel like this camera holds its own to almost any camera on the market. I'm excited to shoot again. I'm a drone photographer by heart, like that's what I've done for the past several years, but I'm shooting a lot more like traditional photography now that I've got this set up, because it's so responsive, it's so fast, and the image quality is just so good. So we'll get to looking at a few of the sample shots just so you can see, and I'm open to any questions that you have. I'll try to answer them. If you want to make the investment, if you want to make the jump from a crop sensor to a full frame sensor, I think it will reinvigorate your photography, your desire to go out and create new shots and compositions and try new things. And then when you get them up on the screen afterwards, you're just going to have a big grin on your face, because that's certainly how I've been. So anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this kind of overview, and I'll kind of give you a little bit more information here in just a second. All right, so we're in Lightroom, and I just want to give you all a sense of what some of these photographs can look like once they're up on the screen. So this is one I shot on Cumberland Island. It was about a second exposure. The light was just starting to peek over the ocean behind me. And so you can see it kind of hitting the trees. But if you look, this was taken with the Sony G Master lens. And I'm not sure about the equipment you all use and what the results look like at 100%. But if you look at this, this image, and it was shot at f6.7 at 35 millimeters, it's going to take a second to clear up. It is very sharp, even at 100%, which just gives so much flexibility when it comes to cropping, when it comes to prints, when it comes to just overall sharpness and clarity
of the picture. And you'll see across the frame, it remains very, very sharp. I love looking at these images up on the full screen after I've taken them and processed them. And I shoot everything in RAW for the most part, except for like the snapshots that I mentioned earlier. But I love taking a look at them because they always look so good. And of course, if it looks great at 100% in 40 megapixels, when you resize it down or make prints that are, normal size prints, it's just going to pop. I mean, you're just going to get so much sharpness and so much detail in your resulting images that it's a joy to use. And so this is just one picture to kind of give you a sense of what it looks like. So this is another image that I shot, and this one really shows off the dynamic range of the camera. It was really windy on the beach, so you can see some movement here with some of the leaves and the branches because this was a 20-second exposure at ISO 2500. And of course, as you boost your ISO, you lose some dynamic range. But what's really incredible about this photo is that I didn't stack, I didn't composite, I didn't shoot 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 photographs and then combine them to get all the best light. This is a single exposure. And let me show you what it looks like just raw before I start pulling out all the details from the shadows. Pretty incredible, right? I mean, it doesn't look like there's hardly any color anywhere because, especially in the foreground, it's so underexposed because I was shooting the sky. But after pulling out the shadow detail and bringing down the highlights, you just get incredible detail from a high ISO, long exposure image. All of these colors were not created in Lightroom. They were pulled from the original image, and it's just one image. So you can imagine how good it will get when I start stacking and things of that nature. So again, just really showcasing how great the sensor is on this camera. I'm just constantly blown away by it.
All right, so hopefully I gave you a bit of an overview about the camera, about my thoughts, showed you some of the image quality. Again, this isn't like a highly technical review, it's more of like an everyman's review because I'm giving perspective of what it's like for me to move from a kind of consumer prosumer system, the A6000, A6300, to a full frame sensor camera. It's not for everyone. And so that's kind of what I'll end with. I mean, there's certainly some nice features, like the Sony lenses have this button right here that you can program to do anything. I program it to do eye focus. That is super cool because if anybody is moving, facing me, what have you, I can just click this button and it'll instantly just focus on their eye and make sure their eye is sharp. That's just a really neat feature, and it's really useful too. So certainly there's a lot of pros about going full frame, but I do want to point out, don't feel like you need to do it. Like, you're not going to be a great photographer if you don't have a full frame camera system. That's completely untrue. You're a great photographer by developing your skills, your composition, the way you photograph light and understand how light works, the way you process your photographs, the skills that you develop over the time, years and years and years. So what I'm afraid that some people do is they go out and they drop tons of coin on high-end camera systems, but that doesn't mean your photographs are going to be amazing. So I could easily take photographs with this system that are boring and uninteresting and nobody's going to want to look at. And when I was using my A6300 for almost all of the ground-based photos you see in my feed, I could take photos that people enjoyed and that were colorful and that had the night sky or silky smooth water or what have you. So all those techniques still apply even for the more, I guess, the cheaper price point, the more prosumer ones. So if you're using Nikon, Sony, Canon, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can pixel peep and all of that, but what it comes down to is developing your eye, your creativity. Processing has become so important, but it's not the only thing. So I'll just leave you with those thoughts. If you have the money and you really want to have great equipment and you want to have the mindset that the equipment will never limit you and you'll be able to shoot anything that you can possibly think of because the equipment is up to the task, then I'd say go for it, because it's fantastic, and I can definitely see differences in the photos that I'm developing now versus my earlier system. But with that said, is it worth the money for you to do that? That's up to you, because it is some money. And if you're not looking to make any money with your photography, it might not even really be worth it. Even if you are looking to make money, you can do that with prosumer systems, and you can make very nice looking prints. And most people would have no idea if you were using a crop sensor or a full frame sensor, let's be honest. So you shouldn't do it just because you feel like you're not going to be able to take professional quality photographs, or you're not going to be respected the same because you're not carrying on this massive piece of equipment with you. Those are the wrong reasons to do it. To me, the right reasons to do it are: one, you want to get the best quality you can possibly get out of a camera system and make the best looking prints that you can possibly make out of a modern camera system that's reasonably affordable, and that's of course relative. And two, you're starting to maybe make more money and get hired to do things, and you want to have good, reliable, which I say kind of, there's an irony there obviously, camera equipment that will last years and years and is up to the task, and does give you that slight edge in image quality. And then three, the last reason is, do you want to? Will you find it to be a wonderful motivating factor in your photography and make you want to go shoot more and learn more and research new techniques online and then practice those out in the field, and you just feel like you've fallen in love with photography again? Then it might be worth the investment. That's kind of how I am. I don't see myself ever being a full pro, meaning it's what I do to make a living. I can't really imagine that happening, at least not before I retire from my day job. But I think I will continue to use it to make some money on the side, but what I'll really enjoy is taking photographs that I enjoy, that I like to create, and knowing that I'll be able to make really large, beautiful prints for my home, for friends, and maybe for galleries and things of that nature. So that's what I'll leave you with. I hope this was interesting to you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have about my experiences, as well as advice. I am not all Sony. I think Canon and Nikon both really make great systems as well. So if you are shooting Canon right now or you're shooting Nikon right now, I would be happy to give you advice in those areas as well. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this.